Billionaire's disguise. Vincent Carrington, a man worth billions, crouches low behind a supply closet door on the 38th floor of Titan Industries' Manhattan headquarters. The faded blue janitor's uniform hangs loosely on his frame, his calloused hands tightening around a mop handle. His eyes fix on the conference room just ahead, where the scene unfolding threatens to destroy everything he built. At the mahogany table sits Isabella Montenegro, the woman he had trusted, the woman he intended to marry. Her diamond earrings catch the sterile light as she slides classified defense blueprints across the polished surface to a foreign operative. Her voice is cold, stripped of the warmth Vincent thought he knew. "The final transfer is complete," she says. Vincent Carrington has no idea the woman sharing his life is the one dismantling his empire. In that moment, his world fractures. The billionaire who once commanded this tower now hides in plain sight as a janitor, watching the deepest betrayal of his life. But how did a man at the peak of power end up sweeping floors in his own company? Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. Tomorrow we reveal the full story behind this deception. Let's begin. Titan Industries stood at the center of Manhattan's financial district, a 47-story monument of glass and steel valued at $12.8 billion US. From defense contracts to renewable energy patents, from medical algorithms to artificial intelligence, the company was a critical player in markets that touched nearly every sector of modern life. To Vincent Carrington, Titan was more than a corporation. It was the empire he had built from long nights in a rented garage, forged from his determination never to live powerless again. That empire now faced a threat greater than any market downturn. During a routine quarterly review in his office overlooking Central Park, Robert Chin, Titan's head of security, delivered news that drained the strength from Vincent's hands. "We've traced unauthorized access to the classified defense servers," Robert said, his tone firm but edged with concern. "These aren't low-level breaches. Whoever is inside has credentials that match the highest clearance tiers." Vincent straightened in his chair, his mind already racing. "How many people have that level of access?" 12, Robert answered. "All handpicked by you." The implication was clear. The betrayal came from someone inside his trusted circle. Days later, competitors released products uncannily close to Titan's prototypes. Stock values dipped, federal contracts were questioned, and the Pentagon requested urgent clarification on security. Each headline cut into Titan's reputation, eroding the confidence of investors and partners alike. For Vincent, the most painful blow wasn't the financial damage. It was the certainty that someone close to him was dismantling his life's work from within. Within 2 weeks of Robert's warning, the signs became impossible to dismiss. Titan's medical division had spent 3 years developing a machine learning algorithm that could detect rare cancers earlier than any known method. Yet a European competitor unveiled a nearly identical product at a global tech conference. Investors immediately questioned how a rival could match Titan's work so precisely, down to the user interface. Vincent demanded explanations from his executive team, but each insisted their departments were secure. Meanwhile, the financial press speculated about Titan's future. Headlines shifted from praising innovation to questioning leadership. Analysts suggested the company had lost its edge. In reality, Vincent knew they were fighting against an enemy who already held the blueprints. The Pentagon's inquiries grew sharper, their questions leaving little room for excuses. Defense officials wanted guarantees that Titan's military drone systems and encrypted communication platforms had not been compromised. Vincent had no guarantees to offer, only mounting doubt. At night, he found himself staring out from his penthouse balcony toward the skyline, replaying conversations with those 12 trusted individuals. Each had worked with him for years, celebrated milestones, and stood by him through challenges. Yet one of them now carried a traitor's face. Robert pushed for an internal sweep, audits, surveillance, tighter access control. But Vincent hesitated. A blunt investigation could tip off the culprit. Whoever was inside was clever, precise, and ruthless enough to bypass every safeguard. If confronted too early, they would vanish, taking the company's future with them. By the end of the quarter, Titan Industries faced turbulence unlike anything in its history. Stock values slid 15% in a single week, wiping out billions in shareholder wealth. Financial news channels ran continuous coverage, dissecting Titan's every stumble. Competitors announced breakthroughs that mirrored Titan's classified research, one after another, as if the future of the company was being stripped away in plain view. The board of directors convened emergency sessions, their tone shifting from concern to near panic. Some questioned Vincent's leadership. Others pushed for sweeping changes to restore investor confidence. The pressure mounted not only in the markets but also in Washington, where Titan's name now circulated in classified security briefings. Vincent sat through these meetings with an outward calm, but inside, fury built with every report. He had spent 2 decades raising Titan into a fortress of innovation, only to watch it hollowed out by someone with access to its core. He replayed Robert's words again. Only 12 people could have done this. 12 colleagues. 12 friends. 1 traitor. For Vincent, the financial losses were painful, but the deeper wound was personal. Trust had been his greatest currency, and now it was collapsing faster than the stock market. Each stolen patent, each leaked defense file, confirmed the scope of betrayal. He knew that traditional methods, audits, investigations, consultants, would be too slow. The enemy was still inside Titan, feeding its lifeblood to rivals. If he wanted to save his company, his reputation, and perhaps his country, Vincent would need a strategy no one could predict. The city skyline glittered outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Vincent Carrington's penthouse. Yet for all the lights of Manhattan, the room felt dim to him that night. He poured 2 glasses of Bordeaux and handed one to Isabella Montenegro, the woman he trusted more than anyone. "I'm losing control of Titan," Vincent admitted, his voice low. "Every move I make feels like it's already known. Competitors aren't just catching up, they're mirroring us. Someone inside is betraying me." Isabella set down her glass, her eyes filled with sympathy. She leaned forward, resting a hand lightly over his. "You've always had faith in people, Vincent. That's one of your strengths. But maybe you're too trusting." Her words lingered, sharp in their simplicity. Vincent rubbed his temples. "I can't accuse anyone without proof. Robert wants to launch an internal sweep, but the moment we act, the thief will cover their tracks. If I strike too soon, everything could be lost." Isabella tilted her head, studying him. "So find a way to see what others can't. Step outside the role of CEO. Watch them without them knowing." The suggestion unsettled him, but the seed was planted. For the rest of the evening, her voice echoed in his mind. "Too trusting. Step outside." Later, alone on the balcony, Vincent stared down at the streets below. To catch the traitor, he realized, he would need to shed everything that made him Vincent Carrington. The following morning, Vincent summoned Robert Chin to his private office. The security chief carried a thick folder of access logs and surveillance reports, but Vincent's mind was already moving in a direction no report could cover. "I can't fight this as the CEO," Vincent said firmly. "Everyone knows where I am, what meetings I attend, even how I phrase my emails. If I keep searching from this position, I'll never see the truth." Robert frowned, setting the folder down. "What are you suggesting?" "I'll enter Titan as someone no one notices. Someone who can move through the halls without a second glance." Vincent hesitated, then spoke the thought aloud for the first time. "I'll go in as a janitor." Robert's reaction was immediate disbelief. "You're out of your mind. You have access to federal security networks, private investigators, entire teams who can track every byte of data. And you want to trade that for a mop." Vincent leaned forward. "Think about it. Executives guard their words around security personnel, but they don't stop talking when a cleaner empties the trash. A janitor can enter offices at night, see what's being shredded, hear conversations no one else hears. A janitor is invisible." Robert shook his head, his voice lowering. "You're putting yourself at risk. If this traitor learns who you really are, they won't hesitate to silence you." Vincent's answer was quiet but final. That's a risk I'll take. It's the only way to save Titan. That night, Vincent stood before the mirror in his penthouse bathroom, studying the reflection of a billionaire everyone in the city recognized. His sharp suit, his polished manner, his commanding posture, all of it would have to disappear. He set aside his tailored jacket and loosened his tie, imagining the face of a man who blended into the background. The thought unsettled him, but it also sparked a grim clarity. Wealth, influence, and reputation had become a shield that blinded him to danger. To fight an enemy inside Titan, he needed to abandon that shield. He spent the next days sketching the outline of a new identity. The beard he allowed to grow came in uneven and coarse. He hunched his shoulders in front of the mirror, practicing a slower, heavier walk. He began visiting working-class diners in Queens, listening to conversations, copying mannerisms, reshaping his speech. When Robert returned with another packet of system logs, Vincent closed it without reading. "This is settled. My name is Vinny Castellano now. I'll rent a small apartment, take a night shift cleaning contract, and walk into Titan as no one worth noticing." Robert exhaled, defeated but loyal. "If you go through with this, there's no turning back. You'll be alone." Vincent's gaze hardened. "I've been surrounded by people for years, and I've never felt more alone than now. If being invisible is the only way to see the truth, then invisible is what I'll become." Vincent Carrington's reflection in the Queen's apartment mirror no longer resembled the man who commanded boardrooms and press conferences. His sharp jawline was partially hidden by an uneven beard, and his hair had grown longer, streaked with gray. He adjusted his slouched posture and practiced a shuffle in his worn sneakers, testing a gait that would make him invisible in Titan's towering halls. Language, too, had to change. He softened his accent, dropped the crisp intonation that marked him as an elite, and listened to the local speech patterns in diners, on buses, and in laundromats. Each phrase he absorbed, each mannerism he adopted, chipped away at the man he had been. By the end of the week, Vincent was no longer Vincent. He was Vinny Castellano, a name lifted from his grandfather's Ellis Island records, a face no one would recognize. Vinny's new apartment was modest, one bedroom, peeling paint, a threadbare couch, but the space suited him. From here, he could slip into Titan unnoticed, blending with the night crew and learning the rhythm of the building from the shadows. On his first night, Maria Santos, Titan's janitorial supervisor, introduced him to the team. "You'll start with floors 12 through 18, she instructed. "Executives make big messes, expect perfection, and never notice you're here if you do your job right. You invisible, you hear, you see, you keep moving." Vinny nodded, absorbing every detail. He swept corridors, emptied trash, and dusted conference rooms with care. Through the hum of the elevators and the faint whir of office air conditioning, he began noticing the lives of those who kept the building running. The parents, the immigrants, the workers who rarely had recognition but carried Titan on their backs. Night after night, Vinny settled into the routines of the cleaning crew. He learned quickly which elevators executives preferred, which offices accumulated the most discarded documents, and which lights were always left on long after meetings ended. Maria Santos kept a careful eye on him, offering advice on efficiency and discretion. "You notice things nobody tells you to," she said one night. "Pay attention, and you'll see more than any executive ever will." Vinny did. He noticed the exhausted janitors juggling multiple jobs, the single mothers who worked late to pay tuition, the retirees supplementing dwindling pensions. Each carried burdens invisible to the employees above them, yet each had stories and knowledge that grounded the building in a human rhythm he had never witnessed from his corner office. As Vinny mopped corridors and emptied trash cans, he began seeing patterns in the executive floors. Certain offices generated unusually high document waste. Some computers were habitually left unlocked. Meetings extended late into the night under muted lighting. These observations, subtle on the surface, hinted at something deliberate beneath. At times, Vinny caught snippets of conversations he would never have overheard as CEO. Words tossed casually over phones, murmured instructions during door-to-door office checks, small fragments that, together, painted a bigger picture. He also felt the contrast of power and invisibility. On the executive floors, he was nothing. Yet his knowledge of the building's movements and its people gave him a new kind of awareness. He was seeing Titan not as an empire, but as a living system, and the betrayal hidden within it. By his third week on the night shift, Vinny's attention to detail had sharpened. He tracked which offices were accessed after hours, which documents disappeared, and which employees lingered where they had no apparent business. Each night, he recorded patterns in a small, worn notebook hidden beneath cleaning supplies. One executive, Thomas Brennan, caught his eye. Brennan routinely stayed late, often requesting secure documents from his department with little oversight. On multiple nights, Vinny observed Brennan carrying encrypted drives past the janitorial service entrance, something a casual observer might have dismissed, but to Vinny, it raised flags. Vinny also noticed subtle exchanges between mid-level executives. Files moved with precision, yet there was no official documentation. Conversations behind closed doors hinted at collaborations outside Titan's standard operations. The more Vinny watched, the more he understood that the thefts were methodical, not chaotic, suggesting a carefully planned effort to remove the company's most valuable assets. Outside of the suspicious activity, Vinny found himself learning humility. Cleaning the same floors he had once traversed as a CEO, he saw the tireless labor that made Titan function. The janitors, maintenance staff, and cafeteria workers were the hidden foundation of his empire. He recognized their humanity, their ambitions, sacrifices, and small victories that went unnoticed by the executives above. With every mop stroke and trash collection, Vinny's understanding of Titan deepened. He was no longer just a CEO investigating theft. He was an observer, part of the invisible workforce, seeing the company in ways no executive ever could. And in the shadows of Titan, the outlines of a conspiracy were beginning to take shape. Vinny's nights grew longer as his observations sharpened. The executive floors held secrets he could never access as a CEO, and now he noticed every anomaly. Certain boardrooms remained occupied past midnight, lights flickering as if executives were meeting with invisible partners. Other offices produced stacks of shredded documents, their contents gone before anyone could account for them. Laptops left unlocked at odd hours revealed glimpses of spreadsheets, contracts, and technical blueprints. Patterns began to form. One board member in particular, Thomas Brennan, consistently appeared at these late-night sessions. Vinny noticed Brennan carrying encrypted drives, stepping out with an air of casual authority as if the night belonged to him alone. There was no official justification for the hours or the movements. Each instance hinted at deliberate concealment. Vinny also tracked unusual correspondence. Small amounts of money moved through shell accounts linked to foreign buyers, always following the transfer of high-value patents and prototypes. The timing, the recipients, and the method suggested someone with deep knowledge of both Titan's internal systems and international trade. The realization struck him slowly, then sharply. This was no ordinary corporate theft. Titan's innovations, medical AI algorithms, renewable energy designs, advanced defense systems, were being siphoned in a manner that could compromise not just the company but national security. Every stolen file, every secret transaction, was a calculated move in a broader campaign to weaken American technological leadership. Vinny tightened his grip on his mop handle as he moved down the hall, fully aware that Titan's fate, and possibly more, rested on his ability to continue observing undetected. One night, Vinny lingered near the 38th floor conference room, notebook hidden in his janitorial cart. Brennan entered with a small encrypted drive, and a foreign contact arrived shortly after, their presence quiet but deliberate. Vinny watched from the shadows as confidential medical AI files were transferred, algorithms capable of revolutionizing cancer detection moving silently out of Titan's systems. The exchange was quick, professional, and meticulous. Brennan handed the drive across the table. The foreign operative nodded, then left as efficiently as they had arrived. Brennan lingered for a moment, reviewing documents on a laptop left unattended, then returned the device to a secure cabinet. Vinny recorded every detail, noting times, procedures, and the precise technologies involved. This was no amateur theft. It was a well-executed operation targeting Titan's most valuable intellectual property. He realized the economic and strategic stakes. Each transfer weakened Titan financially and technologically, but the implications extended further. American defense systems, renewable energy advancements, and cutting-edge medical solutions were being exposed to foreign entities. The scale of the betrayal became undeniable. Brennan, a board member he had trusted for years, had exploited his position to facilitate international transactions that could undermine national security. Vinny's pulse quickened. Observing was one thing. Acting would require precision and patience. From the corner of the hallway, Vinny understood the magnitude of his challenge. The enemy was embedded within Titan's highest ranks, moving with knowledge and confidence that only someone inside could possess. The hunt was no longer just about identifying a thief. It was about preventing a catastrophe. Night after night, Vinny pieced together subtle connections. Transfers of technology aligned with offshore accounts. Meetings stretched into the early hours, always under tight control and away from security cameras. Patterns emerged that revealed a coordinated effort, not simple opportunistic theft. Vinny mapped each suspicious act in his notebook. Which drives were removed, which patents were leaked, which executives were consistently present. The evidence was growing undeniable. Titan's innovations were being siphoned to foreign buyers with precision and intent. This was economic warfare, a deliberate attempt to weaken both a company and a nation's technological edge. The implications hit him with a weight heavier than any he had ever known. Medical AI breakthroughs, renewable energy storage systems, advanced defense technologies. These were not just corporate assets. They were strategic resources, essential for the country's future. Each stolen algorithm and patent represented potential setbacks for American security and innovation. Vinny moved cautiously through the corridors, blending into the night. Observing the patterns, tracking movements, and recording minute details were now his lifeline to understanding the full network of betrayal. Every late-night session, every unlocked computer, every discarded memo offered pieces of a puzzle that, if ignored, could cost far more than Titan itself. As he wiped a conference room table, Vinny felt the magnitude of responsibility settle on his shoulders. This wasn't about revenge or personal justice. It was about protecting a company, its people, and a nation. And he knew that the next phase of his hunt would require both courage and careful precision. Vinny had spent weeks navigating Titan's hidden corridors, moving from floor to floor, observing patterns that executives never imagined anyone could see. Each night brought a new fragment of information, a clue to a growing network of betrayal. He began to notice a consistent pattern among board members. Thomas Brennan was not acting alone. Patricia Hoffman, from the Finance Committee, and Dr. James Liu, head of Advanced Research, were frequently present during late-night document transfers. Their behaviors suggested coordination. Documents moving in predictable sequences, laptops left unlocked strategically, conference rooms occupied without explanation. Encrypted communications, which had seemed innocuous at first, became clearer under Vinny's scrutiny. Messages timed with transactions, cryptocurrency payments linked to shell companies across Europe and Asia, and subtle handoffs in private corridors all indicated a sophisticated operation reaching beyond Titan's walls. It was no ordinary corporate theft. The network's complexity hinted at foreign intelligence involvement. Multiple transfers corresponded with geopolitical events, patent releases, and strategic initiatives. The company's most sensitive technologies, medical AI systems, defense contracts, and renewable energy designs, were disappearing with a precision that could only come from deep insider knowledge. Yet, despite all his observations, one piece remained missing: the identity of the high-level contact within Titan who had direct access to the classified servers. Every board member he followed seemed careful, Every employee observed acted professionally, but the person responsible for initiating the data transfers remained invisible. Vinny realized the operation was layered, adaptive, and relentless. This was more than corporate espionage. It was a coordinated strike that could cripple Titan and compromise national security. He tightened his grip on his mop handle, knowing that patience, discretion, and careful documentation were now his only tools. Vinny's nights became exercises in observation and calculation. Each elevator ride, each flickering office light, each whispered conversation contributed to a map he drew quietly in his notebook. The connections were subtle but undeniable. Encrypted messages sent during Brennan's late-night absences correlated with transfers of sensitive medical AI files. Cryptocurrency payments flowed to accounts in Switzerland and Singapore, seemingly random at first, but when cross-referenced with dates and recipients, forming a deliberate pattern. Vinny tracked every transaction, noting which board members were present during key exchanges and how these activities aligned with the company's confidential project schedules. He began to recognize foreign operatives moving through Titan's network. Unmarked devices accessed internal servers at odd hours. Software updates, seemingly routine, masked the extraction of proprietary research. The company's defense contracts, renewable energy blueprints, and AI prototypes were disappearing, funneled through a web that reached international borders. Despite the precision of the operation, Vinny detected small cracks. He observed subtle signs of coordination among the conspirators. A nod, a fleeting glance, a repeated pattern of presence in certain offices at key moments. The evidence suggested the involvement of foreign intelligence, operating with deep knowledge of Titan's hierarchy and internal processes. Yet the single most critical piece remained hidden: the high-level Titan employee who initiated these transfers. Every lead ended with a dead end or a carefully constructed cover. This person was invisible to security protocols, to surveillance cameras, and to casual observation. Vinny realized the stakes had escalated. Titan's assets were not only at risk. American technological dominance and national security were being compromised. Every night, as he moved through deserted hallways with mop and bucket, he understood that one misstep could alert the conspirators, jeopardizing months of careful surveillance and investigation. Vinny's notebook had become a web of names, times, and locations. Each entry, initially scattered and confusing, now revealed a network that spanned Titan's boardrooms, server rooms, and offices and reached overseas. He noticed recurring connections between Brennan, Hoffman, and Liu. Their meetings, always brief, involved subtle handoffs of drives or laptops. Communications sent during these encounters corresponded to encrypted messages on networks linked to offshore shell companies. Small payments in cryptocurrency followed, their paths crisscrossing continents. Each transfer aligned with a specific stolen technology. Patterns pointed to foreign intelligence involvement. Vinny tracked unrecognized devices accessing sensitive systems, often at the same time as key board members were in conference rooms. These intrusions mirrored international windows of opportunity, suggesting coordination that extended beyond corporate boundaries. The operation was meticulous, precise, and extensive. Still, the high-level contact inside Titan remained a mystery. Every suspect seemed to maintain the outward appearance of loyalty, carefully masking their digital footprints and physical movements. Yet Vinny began noticing minute details others overlooked. A hesitation in a handshake, a subtle glance at a screen, a small adjustment of an office key card at unusual hours. Through the night, he mapped the flow of information. Every stolen patent, every transferred blueprint, every unauthorized upload converged on one invisible point. Someone within Titan was directly feeding critical data to the conspirators. Vinny's pulse quickened. He understood the stakes. His company's innovations, the trust of his employees, and the security of national defense systems all hung in the balance. The hunt had evolved into a high-stakes game of observation and deduction, and every night brought him closer to uncovering the person who had hidden in plain sight. Vinny had learned to move like a shadow. Each night, He navigated Titan's executive floors silently, blending into the spaces no one noticed. That night, the 38th floor felt different. The usual hum of servers and distant city traffic faded into the background. He paused near a supply closet outside the secure conference room, careful to remain unseen. Voices echoed from inside. One was unmistakable. The latest batch of defense contracts uploaded successfully, a calm female voice said. Vinny froze. He recognized the tone, the cadence, the inflection that had once brought warmth to his life. Isabella. His chest tightened as he pressed closer, peering through the crack in the door. She spoke with authority, without hesitation. The buyer confirmed receipt. Payment will be transferred by Friday. Every thought collided in an instant. The woman he had loved, trusted, shared his life with, was orchestrating the theft of his company's most sensitive assets. Each word cut deeper than any corporate loss could. His mind raced. How long had she been planning this? How many secrets had she taken from him, from Titan, from the country? As she moved through confidential folders and accessed encrypted drives, Vinny observed further evidence of her meticulous work. The operation was precise, professional, far beyond what any ordinary insider could manage. He listened in disbelief as names, accounts, and international connections emerged from her conversation. Slowly, the truth revealed itself. Isabella Montenegro was not who she claimed. Through careful cross-referencing and subtle recognition of international protocols, Vinny uncovered her true identity. Katerina Volkov, a deep-cover operative, planted with a single purpose: seduce him, gain access, and exploit Titan's secrets. 2 years of their relationship, from their first encounter at a charity gala to their intimate moments in his penthouse, were not shared affection. They were a mission. Every smile, every insight, every seemingly spontaneous expression of care had been calculated, a tool to breach the defenses of a man who had once thought himself unassailable. Vinny's hands tightened around his mop handle. The room, once a sanctuary of familiarity, now felt like a cage. Each movement of Katerina's, her hands on keyboards, her calm exchanges over secure lines, was a reminder of the life he had shared with someone who had never been on his side. He tracked every file she accessed. Defense contracts worth hundreds of millions, renewable energy blueprints, AI algorithms capable of transforming medical diagnostics. Each transfer, carefully timed and executed, showed a precision that left no room for error. This wasn't opportunistic theft. It was a carefully planned intelligence operation. Vinny's mind replayed the past 2 years. Her interest in his company's projects, her insightful advice on marketing strategies, her concern for his long hours, they were all reconnaissance. Each conversation had been recorded mentally, every password memorized, every security procedure noted. She had studied him, learned his habits, and weaponized intimacy. The realization was suffocating. Titan's technology wasn't merely at risk. It had already been compromised. Foreign entities now held critical information that could undermine not just the company, but national security. The depth of her infiltration made clear that the high-level contact he had been searching for, the person initiating the data transfers, was her. Vinny stepped back into the shadowed corridor, heart pounding. The woman he had trusted most had positioned herself to betray him at the highest level. He understood the stakes. This wasn't just personal devastation. It was a threat to the company he had built, the people who relied on it, and the country's technological advantage. The shock and anger battled with the clarity of purpose. He would need to act carefully, collecting evidence without tipping her off, maintaining his janitor disguise, and preparing for the moment when justice would finally reach her. Each day became a careful performance. By sunlight, Vincent assumed the role of her devoted boyfriend, the CEO his employees admired. By night, he was Vinny Castellano, the janitor moving unseen through Titan's hallways, documenting every interaction, every clue. The duality was exhausting, a constant mental calculus where one mistake could expose him. Or worse, alert Katerina. Every word she spoke carried multiple meanings. When she asked about his day, he interpreted questions as subtle probes. When she brushed against his arm, he felt the violation of trust more acutely than any physical threat. Her smiles, once comforting, now seemed deliberate, a reminder that every intimate gesture had a hidden purpose. Vinny found himself avoiding reflection in mirrors, avoiding spaces where he might let emotion betray him. Even in the privacy of his modest Queens apartment, he reviewed notes, cross-referenced observations, and replayed her conversations in his mind. The psychological strain was relentless, and sleep brought no relief. Dreams twisted into surveillance sequences. Memories of laughter and closeness were layered with suspicion and dread. The company's security challenges added to the burden. Stock prices fluctuated, competitors released eerily similar products, and Pentagon auditors demanded explanations for compromised projects. Each failure, each gap in the system, weighed on him personally. The betrayals weren't abstract. They were tangible, affecting his employees, his investors, and the nation. Vinny moved through Titan's hallways like a ghost, blending into shadows while cataloging evidence. He had become invisible in every sense, to his employees, to Katerina, and even to himself. The line between hunter and prey blurred. And yet, amid the exhaustion, a singular clarity emerged. He could not confront Katerina now, not until he had certainty, evidence, and control. Each night, each careful observation, brought him closer to a confrontation that would demand precision, courage, and the full weight of every lesson he had learned in this dangerous double life. Days stretched into weeks. Vincent maintained the delicate balance between CEO and janitor with meticulous care. During daylight, he smiled, laughed, and strategized alongside Katerina, masking suspicion beneath practiced charm. Every declaration of love, every intimate gesture, gnawed at him. Words that once soothed now carried the weight of betrayal. Each kiss, each hand held, reminded him that his trust had been weaponized. By night, as Vinny, he navigated empty hallways, noting encrypted messages, unguarded laptops, and discarded drives. His eyes cataloged boardroom activity, every late-night meeting, every unauthorized access. The patterns became clear. The conspiracy was entering its final phase. Foreign buyers awaited Titan's most sensitive technologies, and the high-level insider, Katerina, orchestrated each transfer with precision. The company's turmoil compounded his stress. Competitors released products that mirrored Titan's upcoming launches. Stock prices wavered, analysts demanded explanations, and the Pentagon intensified its inquiries, questioning security measures for defense contracts. Every leak reflected both professional and personal stakes. Titan's employees relied on him, and every compromised innovation was a blow not only to the company's fortune, but to national security. Vincent's internal struggle deepened. He had to witness the woman he loved executing plans that could devastate the country. He had to interact with her as if nothing were wrong, hiding knowledge that could upend her carefully constructed facade. Every conversation felt like interrogation, every smile a lie, every gesture manipulation. The intimacy they shared became unbearable, each encounter a reminder of the trust he had misplaced. Yet through the psychological torment, Vincent honed his patience. Every observation, every careful note, every small discovery added to a growing arsenal of evidence. He understood that the final confrontation could not be rushed. Timing, precision, and control would decide the outcome, not emotion. And as the conspiracy approached its culmination, Vincent steeled himself to act with clarity, despite the relentless strain of living among a traitor in plain sight. Vincent worked tirelessly with Robert Chun, Titan's head of security, and a specialized FBI counterintelligence team. Every detail had to be precise. Timing, placement, and cover stories were critical. The network of conspirators had proven capable, resourceful, and patient, and any mistake could jeopardize months of surveillance and planning. He crafted a scenario that would draw Katerina into the open. A charitable foundation, a venture they had discussed establishing together, became the perfect lure. Official papers were prepared, appointments scheduled, and the bait set. To her, it appeared as a final step in their shared plans. To Vincent, It was the culmination of a careful strategy designed to expose every participant in the conspiracy. On the day of the operation, he maintained the dual performance he had perfected over months. By morning, he was Vincent the CEO, charming and attentive. By evening, he became the silent observer, waiting for the moment when Katerina's actions would confirm her guilt beyond any doubt. As she arrived at Titan's executive office, flowers in hand, her expression was calm, confident. She had no reason to suspect the trap. Vincent observed the subtle changes in her posture as she entered, noting the micro-expressions that revealed overconfidence and complete unawareness. Then, the signal was given. FBI agents emerged from hidden positions. Simultaneously, across New York City, other conspirators, Brennan, Hoffman, Liu, and several mid-level executives, were apprehended in a coordinated sweep. Each arrest reinforced the precision of the operation and the reach of the evidence Vincent had collected over months. Katerina's mask slipped as agents moved in. Her composed demeanor fractured, and her accent shifted, revealing the depth of her long-standing cover. "Vincent," she said, voice carrying an emotion he could not discern. "My feelings, they were real." Vincent met her gaze steadily. "I'll never know," he said quietly. "And that's the cruelest thing you've done to me." With Katerina and her accomplices in custody, the evidence Vincent had painstakingly gathered ensured swift and decisive action. Federal prosecutors moved quickly, presenting security footage, recorded conversations, financial records, and intercepted communications. Each piece confirmed the coordinated theft of Titan's assets, the foreign intelligence connections, and the central role Katerina had played in compromising national security. The courts handed down sentences that reflected the gravity of the crimes. Katerina Volkov received 30 years without parole. Her foreign co-conspirators faced international extradition, and the remaining board members and executives involved in the operation were imprisoned or barred from holding positions of trust in any company dealing with sensitive technologies. The dismantling of the network sent a clear message. Corporate espionage, particularly tied to international operations, would not be tolerated. Yet for Vincent, the victory carried a profound personal cost. Titan Industries stabilized quickly. Stock prices rebounded, pending Pentagon contracts were retained, and employees who had been unknowingly endangered could continue their work. The company's reputation shifted from vulnerability to resilience, but the emotional toll on its CEO remained. Vincent found himself reflecting on trust, how it had been given freely, exploited expertly, and nearly destroyed everything he had built. The woman he had loved, the inner circle he had relied upon, even the familiar rhythm of his daily life, all had been used as instruments against him. Recovery was not measured in profits or restored contracts, but in the painstaking effort to reclaim certainty in judgment and to rebuild confidence in those around him. In quiet moments, he walked the corridors of Titan, observing staff with a new awareness. He had learned the value of seeing people clearly, understanding their contributions, and guarding against hidden motives without succumbing to paranoia. The story of his undercover pursuit and ultimate justice became legend, an example of courage, strategy, and vigilance. And though the empire was safe, Vincent knew one truth above all. The cost of betrayal could never be fully erased, and the ability to trust, once shattered, would require far more than victory to restore. This story proves that even billionaires can be blindsided by betrayal closest to home. Vincent Carrington saved his company, exposed a dangerous conspiracy, but learned that trust can be the most fragile asset of all. Where are you watching from? Subscribe now. Tomorrow's story is even more unbelievable, and you won't want to miss it.